I remember being very disappointed when I found out that the war wasn't starting in September. I was a choir boy and we instructed my sister to come and meet us out of church if war had been declared, which we were, as a young boy, 11-year-old, was looking forward to. And she wasn't there, and my friend and I were very disappointed that war had not been declared. In actual fact, it had, and we found out soon enough. Because we lived in a small village in Cheshire, rationing was not as bad as some people had in the big cities. We managed between the farmers and allotments and gardens and what have you. And coming up to the end of the war, I don't recollect realising that the end of the war was coming until that day when it was announced that it would be finished the day after. And all the schools, all the children, I was still in school, I was a 15-year-old, I was still in school, and the children were all given a day off. And we were taken down to the ferry and taken on a trip on the Liverpool ferry round up and down the river. And there was one vessel moored in the river itself, and as we circled it, it was laden with fruit, and they were throwing oranges at us. Something which I had never seen before was an orange or a banana or anything like that. Kites were not allowed to be flown during the war for obvious reasons, but on the day after VE Day, my friend and I, we made a kite and just out of spite sort of thing, flew it to say the war's over and we can now fly our kite again. My mother's sister lived in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, and I do remember sometime just shortly after VE Day itself, I remember a goose arriving through the post from my aunt for us to celebrate the end of the war sort of thing, and hopefully the end of rationing, which didn't happen of course. Rationing still went on. But the goose was a celebration of the end of the war. My brother, of course, had been right through the war in the Navy, and although I'd seen him a few times, I hadn't seen him very much. And that was one thing that I do remember. He was demobbed shortly after the end of the war, and I remember him coming home and living with us. He hadn't lived with us for 6 years, and I'd grown by that time, but it was such a nice thing to have him, my big brother, with me for permanently rather than just for a few days leave. It wasn't until later that I learned what he had gone through actually. He talked to me about it later, but at the time, but he had had quite a rough time in the Navy. And when he eventually came back to live with us, then it was nice to have him, my big brother, with me.